Okay, no, I get what a president does, but like, what is an attorney general? Hi, I'm Annie Klingenberg, and this is the Bully Pulpit. The election is already underway, but millions of Americans have yet to cast their vote, not just for president, but for all the other positions listed underneath. Most people have a rough understanding of what the president and Congress do, but when we look at state and local politics, often we find that the understanding is a bit more muddled. People see the president as being the most important, and on some level, it is true that the presidential race carries the most weight. However, that doesn't mean those lower-level races are any less important. Local and state politics have just as much impact on your life, so let's make sure you understand what exactly you're voting on when you vote this year. I'm not going to cover presidents or congressmen or governors because, quite frankly, the news does that enough. Instead, I'm going to break down all the other positions, starting with Attorney General. Attorney General is the top legal officer of their state or territory. They advise and represent their legislature and state agencies and act more or less as the people's lawyer. All but 7 states elect their Attorney General by popular vote, and they generally serve a 4-year term. Otherwise, they're appointed by a governor or a state Supreme Court. Next up is the State Auditor General. Auditors generally exist at virtually every level of government, and many corporations have them as well. They're also sometimes known as comptrollers, which is technically supposed to be pronounced controller, but is almost always pronounced comptroller. Anyway, the Auditor General is either appointed or elected depending on what state you live in. They perform financial audits of state agencies, municipal governments, school districts, public sector pensions, entities that receive state support, and corporate tax returns. These audits are designed as an accountability mechanism and serve to ensure that public money is spent in an appropriate manner. They make sure the government works efficiently, especially in relationship to finances. Next on the PA ticket is the state treasurer, who is the state's chief banker and money manager. They oversee all the state's cash savings, debt, and investments. Citizens elect state treasurers to serve 4-year terms. Some states do not have a state treasurer, but rather have controllers of public accounts that perform similar functions. As the state's money manager, the treasurer must carefully invest the state's pooled money accounts into steady growth stocks, bonds, and securities. Just like at the federal level, each state has their own Senate and House of Representatives. State legislatures perform similar duties as congressmen at the federal level do, except with more nuanced responsibilities that vary from state to state, depending on the needs of each constituency. A key difference is the time commitment. At the federal level, being in Congress is a person's full-time job. However, at state levels, this is not always the case. Pennsylvania has a full-time legislative body, but not all states do. In every state, the legislature considers matters brought forth by the governor or introduced by its members to create legislation that becomes law. The legislature also approves the state's budget and initiates tax legislation and articles of impeachment. Now, on any given ballot, the last thing you might find at the bottom is a referendum. A referendum is a direct and universal vote where an entire electorate is allowed to vote on a particular proposal that might result in the adoption of a new policy or specific law. Typically, they're on a district or state basis, and you'll only see one if your state legislature has decided to put one forward. Referendums give voters an atypical opportunity to vote directly on policy. All of these positions and ticket items are equally as important as that top position of president, which is why it's incredibly important that you vote all the way down your ballot. Sometimes when you vote in person electronically, there will be an option to vote straight ticket for either party, which means the computer will automatically fill in all the Democratic or Republican candidates. But there are still people behind those parties, and they will affect your day-to-day life more than your federal representative or senator will. Regardless of who you vote for, you have a civic duty to vote. You have the opportunity to affect what happens in our country at the highest and lowest levels of government, and you only get the opportunity to do so every so often, so make sure you vote. In 2016, about 60% of the voting age population reported voting, and among voters aged 18 to 29, only 46% reported voting. Millennials are now the largest voting bloc, but historically have incredibly low turnout. Let's change that this year. No matter whatever you've heard, voting matters, so please just do it. Whether by mail, early, or on November 3rd, exercise your right to vote like your life depends on it, because honestly, it kind of does. I'm Annie Klingenberg. This has been the Bully Pulpit, and once more for the people in the back, please vote.